wash my soul in the ocean, in the tears of God, I let it go.
Hello, my astrology family. This is Lada from astrolada.com, and I'm so grateful that you chose me to be your guide through the year 2022. It's a number 6 year, numerologically 222, which is the number of Venus. Is more harmonious, is more full of love. It's also a number of family, of caring. So there's more gentler energies in 2022, but astrologically is quite an excitable and very happening year. The good thing is that we have the two major players, Saturn and Jupiter, in their own signs. Jupiter most of the year will be in a sign where it feels much happier, in Pisces, and Jupiter is freedom. Jupiter is our ability to grow spiritually, to feel joy, while in 2021, Jupiter was mostly all the time under the influence of Saturn conjunct with it. So all those things that Jupiter represents, like freedom, like joy, like abundance, they were limited because Saturn is way stronger where Jupiter was in 2021 in Aquarius. So all those Jupiterian things like freedom, ability to travel with Jupiter, and ability to have faith and optimism might have been suppressed in most of us, or let's say pretty limited for the whole world. But now Jupiter will mostly goes away from Saturn in 2022, and even further it will move into Aries. We'll speak about that. So, and in signs where Jupiter is stronger, so humaneness is Jupiter. People helping each other, goodness will expand that year. And this survivalist instinct will kind of take a back step. Saturn will continue to be extremely strong and its most powerful sign in Aquarius. So it continues to be an amazing time to build foundations that can last very long. But still, Saturn being very strong means that there are a lot of limitations, but we'll get into that deeper. But still, when we have the two major players, Saturn and Jupiter in their own signs, just to give you the heads up, all of you, no matter what sign you are, you can build something. And not only this, Saturn allows you to build something. Jupiter allows you to expand it, especially in Pisces, without boundaries. In Aries, when it moves, to move forward with courage and passion. So this will be some of the generally for everyone. And there's something I remember my beloved teacher, Nicola Stojanovic, said, oh, when Jupiter and Pisces are in their own signs, the houses that they rule, the areas of your life, they get fulfilled. They give their natal promise. So he even made a prediction there'll be a lot of weddings the last time this happened, that Jupiter and Saturn in their own sign, and a lot of people starting new careers, and it all happened indeed. So we have a similar situation now. It's a little bit like 2019 when Jupiter was in its own sign, Saturn was in its own sign. So things were going very smoothly till the very end, until Jupiter left its own sign and went into Capricorn. So anyway, going back to it, I will lead you through the intro, what you have to do here. But I want to start with a little prayer so we can invite the highest possible energy. If you can join me, you can turn to whatever divinity, whatever higher power you have. For me, this is Christ. For me, this is God Creator, the Mother Creator as well, and all the saints and all the ascended masters and angels that are taking care of humanity. Dear beloved, loving, benevolent Creator, thank you for the opportunity to serve you. Thank you for all those wonderful people that you have gathered around together in this beautiful community of love. Thank you for this opportunity to reveal to people your will ahead. And I'm calling you with a plea. Please send many healers in this present space, many high-level astrologers from the other side, many wise souls and spirits and ascended masters and guardian angels, so they can give me the information, and they can give the inspiration and the healing energy for everyone who is involved here, the right information to reach to the right souls, to the right person, everyone to receive something that is not only healing, that is uplifting, that allows them and helps them to navigate the year 2022 with most awareness, most love, most kindness. And even if there are difficult moments, because everyone will have difficult moments in their life, please let this message uplift the souls and the hearts of the people that listen to it throughout 2022, and help them align to your will and do whatever the highest good is for everyone. Thank you so much. Allow me to be a channel of love, of wisdom, of truth. Come inside me and work through me, and may everyone that is involved here feel the uplifting love of your presence. Amen. Thank you so much for joining me. I always get very emotional when I pray, but when it's together with you, it's even more powerful. And I want to tell you what you need to do to listen to those videos and get the most out of them. I would recommend, if you can watch the sign of your ascendant, sun, and moon, it will be best. But if you can't do that, at least listen to the ascendant sign, which is always the ascendant sign, is the sign that was rising on the eastern horizon when you were born. And that was the sign through which the soul incarnates. And this is the main theme of the incarnation of the soul in this lifetime. So, and because the ascendant sign indicates your physical body, so it's the one that manifests, the predictions from the ascendant sign manifest the most tangibly, because this is the most physical part. The ascendant sign is the body, the vessel. So these are usually the predictions or the forecasts and the trends that are most, let's say, embedded in stone, kind of written in stone. And then listen, if you can, also to your moon sign, especially those of you who are women, because the moon sign is a feminine planet, corresponds to the women and more emotional beings. So even men who are in touch with their feelings strongly, the moon, because the moon is your subjective reality, how you perceive what's happening. And very often when I do a horoscope for a client, they'll describe what's happening in their life from the moon, taken as the first house, taken as the sign that we're checking everything from, because this is how you perceive reality. Actually, sometimes tangibly on the outside, something might be happening, but emotionally a person might perceive it in a very different way. So how you feel about your life, which is probably the most important thing, is the moon sign. So do check it. I personally resonate very powerfully with the moon, being a woman, plus I'm born at night. So if you're born at night, meaning that the planet, the sun, was below the horizon when you were born. So you have to check on the day you were born, what time the sun set. And if you were born before that, after that, or before it rose, so when it was dark, before the sun showed up on the horizon, it means you're a night birth. Then the moon becomes the main divinity, let's say, the main ruling, because the sun and the moon are the two, king and queen. So the light that rules your life becomes the moon. So do check your moon sign if you're born at night, whether you're a man or a woman. Then I want you to check your sun sign, especially if you're someone who is more career driven, more people that, because the sun corresponds to our conscious plans for ourselves, our conscious actions. It's the spirit inside, basically, and our hopes and dreams and goals for our life. And especially if you have the sun in a stellium, for example, also Mercury and Venus is there. If some of you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry. The sun sign is the normal sign everyone knows, like, oh, I'm born in March, I'm most likely Pisces, for example. This is when you say, oh, I'm Pisces, I'm Virgo, this is your sun sign, where the sun was when you were born. And the sun sign is most powerful also for men. Always check it if you're a man, if you're a woman very strongly involved in career and worldly pursuits. And also if you're day born, it means when the sun was above the horizon. Say if you're born at 6 o'clock when the sun was just rising, the sun becomes your divinity, your light, until the moment the sun sets. So check out what time you were born and calculate if you're day or night birth, So basically check the three signs if you can. If you don't have the possibility financially to do that, or the time. Start with the ascendant sign and then choose at least the sun and the moon, depending whether you're night or day birth. How can you find out your sun, moon, or ascendant? It's very easy. I'm going to show you how to do this through my birth chart calculator. And I want you to take a pen and paper and write down the sign and the degree of your sun, moon, or ascendant. Already at least 20,000 people watch those videos yearly. If you're one of those, you know already everything. If you're new to this, into my astrological forecast, which are done in a way that is way more closer to real astrology than just sun signs, I'm going to share my screen with you. There you go. So go to astrolada.com. I don't want to end the meeting. Astrolada.com, go here and find the free birth chart. Click on it. This will appear. Write your name. For example, I'll write mine. Write your month, day of birth, the year of birth, the time of birth. It uses AM, PM, the minutes. If you don't know your minute of birth or time of birth, you don't need to put the seconds. Just listen to your sun sign, because we cannot find your ascendant or your moon sign, which are more personal predictions than the sun sign most often. But you cannot find them without the exact time, because they're way more specific. And then put your country of birth. Here I'm doing mine. And put your town of birth. If you can't find your town of birth here, put the nearest town within 100 miles or something, the nearest bigger town. Or you can go to another birth chart calculator like astro.com, AstroSeek, and continue. So you'll get this chart. By the way, you can see if you're day or night birth, if you find the sun, here is the sun, SU. If it's below this line, you're night birth. If it's above, that's above the horizon, you're day birth. Now don't look at those charts. I want you to go to planetary details and get those first three ones, ascendant, sun, and moon. Write the degree. You don't need the minute after that. The minutes are, but you can write at least the approximate degree. 2 degrees ascendant, sun 23 degrees, moon 24 degrees, but write the sign as well. Ascendant, 2 degrees Aquarius, sun 23 degrees Aries, moon 24 degrees Leo. These are mine. That's all you need to do. Or if you're just going to watch the video of your sun sign, if you've bought this, just look at your sun sign, but write down the degree. Because I'm going to be speaking in degree, so this video makes sense to you. I'll be mentioning from this degree to this degree. I'm not talking in days. I'm going to be talking in degrees, because in days is never as correct. Sometimes you might be born this year. If someone is born on the 15th, for example, of October this year, the degree might be 23 degree. But if next year, that might be the 25th degree. So I want to work with degrees. Write it. And if you have time, listen to 3 of those predictions, because you'll get so many valuable insights from the 3 different predictions, even if they're clashing. Like sometimes one prediction can say the opposite of your sun prediction. So for example, your moon prediction can say the opposite of your sun prediction. You'll notice that they play on both levels. You'll notice one and the other, because we are very multi-layered and complex beings. There we go. So write those down, and we're going to start one by one with the 12 signs. Thank you so much. And I'm so excited to be with you on this journey. Hello, dear Virgo Sun, Moon, or Rising. This is your 2022 video horoscopes. And it's funny that I got to Virgo and I got a bit of a cold. I've been in bed for a week. But I'm just feeling better already. So I'm plowing through, because you hear that one of the biggest themes for you will be focused on health. And let's start directly diving into it. So we always start with the position of Saturn, where it's transiting, where it's passing, because this is where the most important lessons for the whole year are. And actually, for Virgos here, Saturn has been passing your 6th house. If you count here from Virgo 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Saturn is situated since 2020. For some period in 2020, Saturn was in your 6th house. Then 2021, the whole time. And now the whole 2022 till the end, Saturn will be in your 6th house. And in 2023, it's coming out. But last year, 2021, Jupiter was also there helping a bit or expanding those topics. This year, only Saturn will remain in the 6th house. What does it mean for you? What are the most important lessons for you, Virgo, Sun, Moon, or Rising? Well, one of the most important meaning of the 6th house is health. And when Saturn passes through there, it kind of, for example, if you have some chronic condition, Saturn can bring it to the surface because Saturn rules chronic health issues. And it kind of will intensify it while it's there, so you can learn to regulate it with food, exercise, or medicine. And so it can bring it more to the consciousness to you, so you start taking specific steps towards overcoming the issue, basically, the health issue. If you've left it to linger too long, now it will be impossible. You will need to really do some little step-by-step improvements. But the thing with Saturn is that it never gives you healing overnight, even if you start making changes. You need to be very persistent, and the results will show later on, and they'll be long-term. Usually the results with health will come up after Saturn moves out. Oh, you start seeing already, but you see baby steps because everything Saturn moves very slowly. So improvements with your health will also start changing very slowly, and they will be dependent on how consistent and dedicated you are to a healthier workout or healthier lifestyle or eating routine. Because the illnesses that 6th house rules, they're not genetic ones, they're not ones that are kind of fated or karmic. These are more illnesses that are due to lifestyle choices or pollutants around. So if you've been slouching, maybe you have a backache, or if you've been eating unhealthy, you might have, whatever, heart problems. It's health diseases that appear after, which Saturn triggers in the 6th house, that makes you aware of after long-term repeated misuse of health or of food in some way. So it's your important task in 2022, already started from 2020 even, to figure out what it is. And it's a slow process with repeated efforts. You might have to try repeatedly to figure out what it is, to be diagnosed, or to you don't even need to diagnose it. You just find a way to regulate it, and that's what Saturn gives usually. While it's there, it doesn't necessarily remove an illness. What is there, it helps you regulate it. For example, if someone is diabetic and find out they're diabetic while Saturn transits the 6th house, they learn how to live with, for example, eating less animal fat and so on. Like diabetes is caused by clogging of the veins with fat, so it cannot absorb the sugar and so on. So you start researching, studying, and you learn how to decrease those foods or those activities or those mental states that are causing you some deterioration in the health. And by the period when Saturn moves out of there, usually you have a health issue under control. And usually if you've been doing the right steps, having to overcoming the ignorance of this situation, because Saturn is about ignorance, to overcome ignorance about some health condition. By the time Saturn moves out of it, it becomes very tolerable, can be lived with, or even can be healed by then. On another level, sometimes Saturn can bring health conditions that are under, something that is underperforming in some way. So make sure you check those. And also health conditions that are connected to, and say if you have a wound or accident of some sort, it takes longer to heal with Saturn. It takes longer than usual. And it's not so, it is a painful position, but it's only so we can learn how important health is. Saturn is the planet of importance, gravitas. It's very heavy planet. And so you learn the importance of health. So for some of us, it can happen by having health issues, we're having to deal with it. And for others, it might happen by pure natural desire to start learning about health. I've had people that when Saturn transits their sixth house, even if they have no health problems, they become very serious about fixing their health. For example, they start working out, they really change their diet, they start feeling it's a matter of life and death, or they start feeling it's a matter, not necessarily that they're sick. You know, many times I've seen Saturn transiting the sixth house and no one gets sick, but just people become more aware. They start noticing, their consciousness start noticing more topics about nutrition, about supplements, about all such kind of matters, exercise. And when Saturn transits the sixth house, especially from the ascendant, to a lesser degree sun or moon, but from the ascendant I've seen it very powerfully. This is one of the rare times when a person can really change over a couple of years their whole lifestyle, their whole health lifestyle in a positive way, because Saturn works hard, is consistent, is disciplined. And even if it's not easy when you start changing your health lifestyle when Saturn is there, because it's a slow process. You might see the results very slowly, gradually. But usually if people change their lifestyle, their health lifestyle, their nutritional habits while Saturn is in the sixth house, it sticks for life, because whatever Saturn brings, it's long term. And usually those habits, they continued from to the, let's say, to you die, so to speak. And even if you're a younger person, you can, whether by force or by personal desire, you can be forced or you can be inspired in some occasions to acquire healthier and more positive habits, and to remove, because sixth house is also unhealthy habits, and Saturn is depicted by death with the sky, to chop off some of the health habits that are detrimental for you. And because sixth house in ancient astrology rules self-medication. Is it smoking? Is it drinking? Is it taking prescription pills? Is it taking sleeping pills? Is it, whatever, it's self-medication that goes beyond health, beyond the healthy. When it starts harming you, it almost like it can turn into physical addictions. This is the sixth house as well. All kind of chemical substances that might be even poisonous for you, that you're trying to restore some balance, but usually they always can hurt something else. Whether it's mental balance, sixth house is the house of mental or physical balance and health, or lack of balance, sorry. So Saturn is trying to address all of those things slowly, gradually. Don't get frustrated if the process is slower than you expect, and you need to make repeated efforts. And you might feel like sometimes you're stuck, especially when Saturn starts going retrograde, which happens from June to October 22nd in the year 2022. You might see like a slowing down of the positive results of lifestyle changes or health changes, or if you're on some treatment or health, or workout exercise, and you might have to put extra efforts while Saturn is retrograde. But then when it starts moving direct after October 22nd, you'll notice that you have fully implemented those new habits, healthy lifestyles, and new habits and removed, if you're trying to remove unhealthy life habits, Saturn transiting the sixth house is probably the best transit for that. And again, I repeat, I've mostly seen it very strongly from the ascendant, from the moon as well to some extent. And also sometimes it's not necessarily fully stopping something. It's actually learning to regulate it. I've seen many people who are drinkers or smokers, when Saturn transits their sixth house over a couple of years, somehow naturally, or usually it's with effort, with personal effort, they learn to lower the amount of, whether they take sleeping pills or whether they take alcohol, whatever, to kind of regulate themselves better with that. It's not necessarily always about fully stopping such things, Well, if you have a properly conditioned, as I said, it might take some time where you consistently work through those issues and changing your lifestyle. Also, the sixth house rules the physicians and doctors that we have in our life. So with Saturn there, Saturn indicates that you can find some very knowledgeable doctor that is a bit hardcore, that is very strict on you, and that might even and you might have to try a few times, because the meaning of Saturn is try a few times to find the right doctor. If you're trying to find the doctor, you might have some problems first with doctors. You might, till you find the right one, it's not going to come straight, and usually it will be like an old school doctor or more traditional kind of doctor, or a doctor who has a lot of experience, which is Saturn, elderly, wiser of some sort. Because Saturn is in its own sign, it will give very good results. So a doctor, if you get connected with, will turn out to be quite knowledgeable, because it's in Aquarius with a lot of experience. But you might not happen from the first time. Just giving you this as an idea. If you are dealing with such problems, you might need to go for second, third opinions to get a proper diagnosis, because with Saturn, it's not try once, try over and over, and then you get a really good masterful doctor or whatever. Sixth house is not only about health though. Sixth house is about order, organizations. It's very Virgo energy. So a lot of Virgos will feel quite comfortable with that, because it's basically triggering this area of your horoscope, which is a Virgo area, because it's the sixth house and you're the sixth sign, and it's the house of routines, organization, order. So the ultimate goal of Saturn's day is that you become more ordered, more organized in your everyday activities. If you're already like that, you might be thriving. You might be really enjoying categorizing and labeling things, because Saturn also likes to label. Saturn is a scientific planet. Categorize, label, there, arrange. So if you are doing such activities already, they're a good thing to do, because you are channeling this energy into, so it doesn't manifest through illness and things like that. You can channel it through other sixth house activities, because it needs to manifest in some way, and this is a remedy. Clean more often around yourself, organize around yourself, take care of small details in your everyday life or at your office. And you might, even without wanting, you might be given a lot of chores and errands and responsibilities that you have to do, that are kind of mundane and menial, because Saturn is the worker. Saturn is the cleaner. Saturn is the one that does the small, hard jobs behind the scenes, the ungrateful jobs, so to speak, but without which everything will fall apart. So you might find yourself in a situation where you're constantly cleaning, organizing, picking up after others, in a bit of a Cinderella role. But you as a Virgo, you naturally have affinity to be helpful to others, and that makes you feel useful. So I don't think that's such a bad thing for, like, for example, Leos, when they had Saturn transiting their sixth house, they were like, ooh, I felt like Cinderella and I'm supposed to be the queen, But you Virgos, you humble, beautiful, pure souls, well, not everyone. There must be some serial killers between you, I'm certain. But for most of you, because Virgo is the purest sign, childlike purity in it. And honesty to be, that's why they say they're critical. They're more like, Virgo is like, the king doesn't wear clothes, they say things as they are, with their simplicity and with their, that they say it as they see it. But anyway, getting back to your sixth house, Saturn. So yes, you might find yourself being involved with a lot of errands, having to do, and even if you work at work, you might find yourself that your work duties increase, because Saturn brings more responsibilities and duties. And yes, you might be grumpy, you might be dissatisfied, maybe you felt it already from 2021 and you're getting used. And that's the last year Saturn is in your sixth house. So by now, you kind of learn how to drag that energy or how to beat that donkey, whatever you want to call it. But it's, yes, the workload continues. It's quite big if you're already having some. Or if you don't, you see that your responsibilities and duties at home or at work will increase. And they're usually such ones that, not the glamorous ones. Maybe you're the one doing the hard work in the office, not getting the rewards, not getting the applause. You're doing it for a boss, something like that. But you're doing a great job. It's necessary. And because the sixth house is the house of the disciple, or also the apprentice. And the apprentice, I'm not saying that you're being in an apprentice job, you might be, some of you, but when you're in a phase of the apprentice, kind of the apprentice get given the hardest job, you know, or the intern type of energy. Go do coffee, whatever, or do all the hard work for the boss, and the boss gets the applause, and you're like, okay. But you get the recognition. Now you're being given how good can you serve? How good can you fulfill orders and follow orders, whether they're your own orders or other people's orders? Even though they might be quite harsh, there might be deadlines with Saturn there that is required, you know. Another way is that be organized around you, clean more, put order in your desk, remove the unnecessary clutter from your life, the unnecessary habits that are cluttering your health and your mind. And yes, indeed, it's health, mental health issue as well. Sometimes when Saturn transits the sixth house, if you have predisposition towards mental health issues of some sort, depressions, they can escalate. But it is again about changing something in your daily routine and environment, something with your diet, something with your health style, or even your work conditions of some sort. Saturn wants to restructure them, because those mental health issues are coming from some repeated habit. It might be habit of negative thinking. It might be habit of eating bad food, because, you know, the happiness hormones, they're in the stomach. We thought it's in the head, but actually they're produced in the stomach and in the small intestine. And you know that the sixth house actually rules, just like Virgo does, rules the small intestine, where 75% of all the illnesses come from. So they come from the foods we eat. Is something festering in your stomach? What kind of bacterial symbiosis you have there? So I would advise you getting, if you're feeling mental health issues as well, or weakened immune system of some sort, get into supplements, get into eating living foods. So you can supplement the microbiome there, and if you have mental health issues as well, food is one of the most important things. You eat a few days just fruits and vegetables, organic, in a healthy way, and you start feeling happier and happier. It's crazy how powerful it is. But anyway, I'm just giving you advice for anything like that. Okay, another thing is that if you're, for example, not employed, this is again the sixth house. If you're an employee, Saturn can indicate that you have to try harder and harder to find a job. For example, Saturn can restructure your work environment. How can it play out? For some of it can mean they lose their job, because Saturn wants to remove the unnecessary, that it's just blocking your life. It's no longer being productive for you. And it can feel painful, and it can feel ungrateful that you're losing a job or something like that. And a lot of people are losing in 2021 already jobs that they've been for a long time, service jobs. You know, a lot of Virgos are in the medical fields, or in the fields of service to others, that a lot of people are losing it because of, you know why. And if this is happening, or if this happened already in 2021, or if it's going to happen for you in 2022, you know, Saturn wants to tell you, take it as a sign from God, because Saturn wants to tell you this is deadwood in your life. There is a better thing that is more purposeful and meaningful for you. Saturn removes the, you know, it's like the rotted flesh. Let's use medical terms, because that's, you know, Saturn is like in the body. It also rules those particles of the body that clean up the mess after an illness or whatever, you know, the cleaning particles in the body. I forgot what their name is. So Saturn is trying to clean off your game, whatever, if you're not in the right field, or even if you're in the right career but not in the right place of employment. And while Saturn is there, you can still find another job. It will have responsibilities, but you'll have to try a few times, repeated attempts, try over and over. But Saturn, because it's in a wonderful position, it's in its strongest sign. When Saturn transits Aquarius, it can fulfill. When Saturn transits its own sign, like Saturn rules Aquarius in ancient astrology, it can fulfill the promise of that house. So even if you've been unemployed or lost your job, while Saturn is in your sixth house, even if you took your job, it will give you a better job. It will give you a job with more authority, with more responsibility, but also with more aligned to your mastery, aligned to your experience much more. So don't worry about that, just keep trying. Because with Saturn, nothing falls in your lap. There's repeated efforts till it's given, because Saturn first wants to test you. Do you really want it? Are you committed to it? When you show you really want to work, for example, whatever, to find a better job, it will give it to you. Another way it can play out is creating some problems in your work environment. There might be some resentment, or there might be someone blocking you there, or someone putting a pressure on you so much. Again, it can really escalate sometimes when Saturn goes retrograde, and I told you that's from June to October 22nd. But it can mean that you need to change something in regards to your work, or it's maybe like a test how committed you are there. Or it can indicate that you're very dissatisfied with your current place of work. Even if you don't get fired or whatever, lose your job, you might feel very dissatisfied and grumpy. This is another quality of Saturn. So it is telling you, make a change. It's time to make a change and to restructure, but don't go in a totally different new area of work. For example, if you've been working till now in a medical field, don't go becoming a florist if you don't have any experience about it. It might be just that you're dissatisfied with your job. Maybe you change the hospital. Because Saturn, when transiting the 6th house, you have to work something that is according to your previous experience. You might change to some extent the nature, the structure of the work and so on, but not something brand new, totally kind of different. On another level, it can mean that you're working on some project very hard. Say if you're self-employed, for example, it can mean that there is increased workload, and that I just had Saturn transiting for 2.5 years in my 6th house from my moon, and I kind of feel emotionally down because I had so much work and not enough time for fun, for joy. But again, as I said, your energy is very aligned to service. Virgo feel like thriving the most when they're doing the right service. Of course, if you're in a job that is ungrateful, it's not something that you really like doing, Saturn will escalate your dissatisfaction that we talked about, which means like you need to make some change there, restructure something, streamline or remove certain duties and responsibilities that are taking too much of your energy, and streamline the process so you can start enjoying the work again. So I can give you an example of what I did while Saturn was transiting the 6th from my moon. I realized that I had so much workload, it increased so much, and actually started feeling overwhelmed and emotionally very dissatisfied because it's the moon that it was transiting from. So I said, okay, I'll need to remove certain responsibilities, because Saturn brings responsibility, but it also makes you think to prioritize and to streamline and to take the things that are most important, priorities. What are the most important tasks at your desk or with your responsibilities in your life, at home? Don't overburden yourself, because Saturn increases those responsibilities, so you can stop and say, work hard, say, no, you have to work smart, not hard, And so you have to adopt that mantra for a little bit, work smart, not hard. So you're still going to work hard, but add the smart to it. So what I did is, like I said, I can no longer do, it's just I get overwhelmed, personal readings, and I can no longer answer absolutely every email, because I would get like 100 emails of people and I would answer them, try to help them for free and everything. I said, I can't, and I was ignoring the clients, and I was ignoring making quality content, and I was just wasting time in such details. And Saturn, when transiting the 6th house, will allow you to see this in many areas of your life. Where are you wasting time and energy, and how do you organize your life, your day, your work in a more practical way, to streamline, to remove certain things, certain activities that are just taking from your focus, from your attention, and to put the detail, and again, to do masterful job, but with the most important things, with the priority. So I just left to do the things that actually were most important to me, that would bring the most audience, that would reach the highest number of clients and viewers, that will be useful and the most helpful to everyone, rather than get lost in the details. Because the first year of Saturn in my 6th house, first year and a half, I got lost in the detail and I was gonna go crazy. I was just working double. and my mental health started being, and my physical health started going down, and I'm still trying to recover. So that's the wise way to act with streamline the process, organize yourself, don't make it too complex for yourself, simplify, downsize. And for some of you who have your own business, you might have to downsize. I even decided I want to downsize my team, I want to downsize my responsibilities. I still worked hard because Saturn in the 6th house, you can't avoid those things. You have a duty to pay, you have a duty when Saturn trines the 6th house. But I did it in a smarter, streamlined, and a more organized way. I structured my work better, I organized my work better. So this is the advice I give for you. Then if you are an employer, 6th house would be your employees. And Saturn can give some problems with employees. For example, they might be late with their work, they might be doing some delays, they might be creating some stressful situations, or if you have employees or like master builders building your house, 6th house, that you've employed them, you're hiring their services, and they're taking forever to fix something or whatever, or they're doing problems. These things can arise, especially while Saturn is retrograde, the period that we talked about from June to October 22nd. But it can indicate that you need to learn how to be more disciplined with your employees. You need to introduce some discipline or some rules, some regulations, rather than rely on their goodwill. With Saturn, there's not much goodwill. And you might even have to downsize and cut some off that are not sticking to the rules, or that are delaying the process or whatever, or that they feel like a dead weight. This is what Saturn tends to do, but it is good because Saturn will leave you with just the most capable employees, with most reliable ones. And whatever problems you might have, some restructuring you might have to do with employees, the final result can be quite good. On another level, Saturn rules your 5th house, as in the 6th house. So 5th house is your creative, intelligent, original ideas. 6th house is works. For some of you, it can indicate that you're working on some project behind the scenes, especially if you have your own business, that it's your own idea and you're perfecting it, just like a apprentice putting touches, redoing it over and over. So this can be a year working behind the scenes on some great work of yours, the great opus, and you're doing still the ungrateful job before the recognition, but actually that's where a lot of the beauty of, and if you're doing something you really love and you're passionate about, which is what Saturn ruling the 5th house can indicate, something that is your own passion, that you're working maybe to turn into business, to turn into something productive, into a service of some sort. This is what some of you might be doing while Saturn is transiting your 6th house as a ruler of the 5th house. And at the end of this period, you might come up with a great product, with a great brand, or whatever you've been working behind the scenes. You can really kind of get the results from it. And as I said, because Saturn is in its own sign, it usually tends to give very positive results eventually by the time it leaves out. Something that stays in your life very long lasting. So if you're making your own business, yes, you have to put effort, you have to be very organized, you have to work hard on some creative projects behind the scene, like a slave to it. But the final results can be very long lasting. Or if you find a job now that is a new job, it can be a job that stays for you for a long time, because new things that Saturn gives, they last for a long time normally, because specifically in this case, because Saturn is in a very good sign. Another level, 6th house, is pets and animals, whether you have cows and chickens, or whether you have kittens and doggies. This is the 6th house. Sometimes Saturn in the 6th house can indicate some problems with your pets that you have to overcome. They might have health problems or something like that. Just warning you, this is the case. And Nicholas Stoyanovich used to tell me a good remedy for Saturn, if you're born with Saturn in the 6th house, but you can apply it if you're having the transit. Take care of an elderly animal. Even if you're having health problems, he says, if you're having health problems when Saturn transits the 6th house, take care of an old, Saturn is old, or a black dog. old black dog, for example, old black cat, or a blind cat, or something. Saturn rules crippled, sick, old things, you know, if you can do that. And, you know, that can be kind of a remedy for the sixth house. Another thing is that people that work in sixth house careers can find themselves quite prospering, to be honest, maybe in position of responsibility, maybe in a position of many duties and hard, you know, work, but kind of possibly even kind of climbing the ladder despite of the increased responsibilities. And six work careers, the medical field, whether you're a nurse, social services, the ones that take care of the marginalized, the ones with problem, customer services, where people call up to complain, dealing with complaints and criticism as well. You can find yourself increased workload. For example, if you have a business and it's your own in those spheres, you're working to restructure it, to do something, you know, better on it, to make it more better. Also the police officers, because they go where there are problems and where there are things out of balance to fix them. That's what the sixth house like to do. Police officer, military, people in the military. And indeed, there might be some difficulties there, because Saturn is there, that you'll have to cope with. But the difficult problem that you solve there will serve as a... you'll be rewarded for it after that, usually after Saturn leaves the sixth house. Other sixth house careers are if you're in the health industry, workout and supplements industry, or nurses, or someone that works in a gym, for example, or self-care, health self-care. I've got like herbalism and so on. It can be a good period despite Saturn being there, something to restructure, business extra responsibilities and duties, you know, maybe having to downsize but keep the most important clients on the most important responsibilities, to restructure it somehow, but the final results will be very streamlined, very kind of sleek. So these careers, I think, actually, despite some of challenges Saturn can bring, can fare quite well. And even if you're not in those careers, you can find yourself that you're becoming much more focused, and you've already noticed it in 2021, into supplements, into workout, into herbs, into such kind of... I went crazy when Saturn and Jupiter were transiting my sixth house from the moon. We started doing all kinds of supplements and regulating your moods with supplements. You know, you take some vitamin B and some vitamin C and some stuff, and you're like, ting, and you're, wow, it's like a shot of tequila or something. So you can get fascinated with such things. Okay, and sixth house is debt as well. So this can be a time where you're learning to regulate some debt, or to restructure it, to remortgage or something. Plus Saturn can block something, so some debt can be put on hold, like whether it's a mortgage or some other debt, can be put on hold, or can be slowed down, the paying off of the debt. That's another way it can play out. But also, I've seen many times people tackle on a debt, try to organize themselves about it, to restructure it, to pay it off, to put it into pieces or something like that. So that's another thing it can contribute for you, to downsize, to fix it. Plus, Saturn is a planet that loves being in the sixth house, because the sixth house is, you know, dealing with problems, with fixing things that are not working, that are broken, fixing health problems, you know. But Saturn is a tough planet, so it likes being in a tough house. So you're going to be not afraid to deal with such tough things, whether things to fix, where there is some out of balance situation or health issues to correct, extra duties and responsibilities to tackle them on, some work, some ungrateful work, or just work without, you know, like long hours. Sometimes people become workaholics when Saturn transits the sixth house. Especially you, Virgo, you're susceptible to that. Don't smirk, you know. It's okay. Saturn's transiting your sixth house. Don't be forever like that, but now it might be the right time. But it's, you know, you get a lot done when Saturn transits the sixth house, even if it's not the most fun things to do. But it's a great place for Saturn. It likes to organize, to order, to streamline, and that's what the sixth house is about as well, to tackle problems. What else it is? Oh, it is animosity, 6th house, enemies, open enemies in Vedic astrology. So someone at work that hates you, or someone that always, or your arch enemy. I don't know. Do you have such? Or if you have a legal court case with someone 6th house, is this kind of the problem, Well, Saturn there can, or if with your husband or wife, you might be like enemies. Well, Saturn there can slow down that animosity, can put a stop to it, or can kind of make it freeze. It's not going to solve it. For example, if it's a court case, it might, some litigation problem. It might prolong it till it's there, but it doesn't make it worse or better. It kind of, you plow there day by day, and with very little progress, so to speak, but it kind of freezes the conflict. And it usually, if you're in a difficult marriage, it can freeze the problems there somehow, but without solving them, just saying sometimes how it works. But Jupiter can change that, because Jupiter is in your 7th house, with which we're transiting now to the other important development. This is the position of Jupiter. And in 2022, till May the 10th, it will be in your 10th house. Yoo-hoo! Sorry, 10th house, 7th house, in relationships. And from May the 10th till the beginning of November, so for 6 months, it enters your 8th house. But from November and December, it comes back to your 7th house again. Wherever Jupiter goes, things expand, grow, things happen easily, opportunities come. You're on a flow. Not with Saturn, everything is a constipation. Everything is like, oh, okay, I did. With Jupiter, is like, ooh, there you go, nice flow. Here's a laxative. Oh, what a, So it's kind of they call it the great benefic, God's blessing. There are things, the green light, you get the green light. So for 6 months of the year, basically the first 4 months till May the 10th and the last 2 months of the year, Jupiter will be in your 7th house, which hasn't happened in 12 years, which bodes very well. It's good news for relationships, by the way. So if you're single, especially if your moon or ascendant are in Virgo, very strong chance of meeting someone that is good karma for you, that you have good loving relationships from a past lifetime, that is a good, that will bring something good for you. Even if they don't stay forever in your life, they might just open some path for you. But if, for example, I got married when Jupiter was transiting my 7th house, and then when it was transiting the 7th from my sun, I got married again. So I tend to get married. or if you're already in a relationship, you can take it to the next level if it's a happy relationship. But you can usually bring you someone that's very Jupiterian in nature if you're single, or even if you're not sometimes. It might be someone who is open-minded, non-critical, accepting, fun, kind of someone who has loud laughter even, Jupiter. When I say Jupiter, I imagine Santa Claus. You're not going to marry Santa Claus, but it's someone inclusive, kind, forgiving, open-minded person. And it might be even someone with foreign energy around them. But because also Jupiter rules your 4th house and it's going to transit your 7th house. So 4th house going to transit your 7th house. This indicates that you can meet someone who is ready to settle. Someone who has, or someone who, interesting enough, you might have known from childhood. 4th house is early childhood. I don't know. But that's just a supposition. But someone who is more like, who can bring to you the themes of settling, of children, of property. Another thing it can happen is that you can buy property. Why am I saying that? Because Jupiter rules your 4th house of place of living, property, and being in the 7th house of deals, signing deals. So you can find like the best property deal or whatever. So like relocate or something like that. So sign a great deal. Or you can find a really good agent that makes a great sale for you, for example, makes it very simple, easy in some way. Seventh house is not just marriage partners, relationships, boyfriend, girlfriend. As I said, it can bring you. I know sometimes I've seen when Jupiter transits the seventh house, you meet not one but a few people. That's the conundrum with Jupiter. It sometimes can give loads or more than one choice. So that's where it might get a bit complicated for some of you. Part of May, till May, and then the last 2 months, possibly. But if it brings more than one choices, I don't know what to tell you. Choose the more Jupiterian choice, the easier going one. And sometimes Jupiter can give you someone, let's see the darker side of Jupiter, who is all fun but no seriousness and responsibility, who is like, oh, let's party, very bohemian, everything is fine, very kind of Sagittarius energy or Pisces, but responsibilities are avoided, but good time partner. Not necessarily, I think there is wisdom in Jupiter, so I think, but you can have some good times with others or with your partner. And if you're already married or in a committed relationship, which is a good relationship, Jupiter can improve it. The relationship, you can have like a mini renaissance. You can re-fall in love, for example. Or you can, your partner, marriage, or boyfriend, girlfriend, can have some new opportunities that come in their life. For example, a promotion or a great new idea. Or they might feel more inspired, more forgiving, more kind than normal. And there might be some possibility to travel with a partner, or foreign countries, or even a partner connected to foreign countries of some sort. Or you can meet someone abroad, because it's after all in Pisces, foreign places. And it's funny how you, as a Virgos, being a little bit more uptight, let's not kid ourselves, there's uptightness in Virgo, but that's what you have to do. You need to take care of the details that no one likes, and you have to be uptight a bit, but I love Virgo energy. I find it quite gentle, actually. The criticism, I find it always, it's out of good intentions, at least the Virgos that I know. But it's funny enough how Virgos, like with their bit of uptightness, everything have to be right. My ex-husband was Virgo rising. That's why and I have a lot of friends Virgo rising that I really love. And they always tend to attract partners that are on the other kind of spectrum, end of the spectrum, which Jupiter would enhance now, which is the Pisces spectrum, which is, happy-go-lucky, nothing is planned, live a life. Virgos try to solve everything, to prepare for everything, to make sure everything is, proper, but their partners are like, sofa, potato couch, sometimes someone who might have drinking problem, or someone who is just good, yay, let's enjoy it. But sometimes you can learn a lot about life from them, that it's not all about, horse with blinkers following everything to the book. Sometimes usually the people that you attract, they expand your contractedness. They allow you to take a breather. Life is to enjoy, or life is their mystical areas of life. It's not about responsibilities and duties only. It's not about taking care of others and fulfilling your duties. Yes, it is. It is your mission to do that. But sometimes, your partners pull you towards like, let's go down. Sorry about that. Let's go down the stream rather than roll up the paddle upstream. So you can now, such people can enter your life, not necessarily marriage partners, sexual partners. Even seventh house can indicate close people, other people that can show you, live a little bit. Indeed, you continue, because you have responsibilities here, very Virgo ones, with Saturn in your 6th house, which is naturally a Virgo house, to do those Virgo things. But at the same time, people in your life that you're attracting, but it's new people that are entering, which there will be quite a few new people entering, or at least one or two important such. They'll be like, they'll be trying to teach you the lesson that sometimes it's good to relax and flow down. Sometimes it's good to believe in not having to figure out everything on your own, which the 6th house and Virgo tries to do, and fix all your problems on your own. Sometimes there is divine intervention. Sometimes you can ask the universe and you can receive without, you can ask and receive, without having to go through the difficult lessons or through the difficult, without getting things in the difficult way, So you would attract such people that would expand your attitude towards life a little bit, they would give you a wider horizons for you, maybe philosophical, maybe more mystical, open-minded. You can meet such people. And actually, if you travel somewhere, especially, you can meet someone, and even romantically, let's say. And you'll see after that that there is strong topic for romantic developments for Virgos if you're single, or even if you're not single, if you're stuck in a marriage that is unhappy or relationship. Jupiter in the 7th house can introduce someone new to your life that can start to give you the green light to release the old. And sometimes even, because I was saying, Saturn in the 6th house can stop some kind of animosity but Jupiter in the 7th house, this is Jupiter expands the rotation of the house. So revolving doors, people come into life, people leave. So you can notice now that there's some people will leave your life, but you give them permission to leave. If they leave, it's like you feel relieved. You're like, whew, it's kind of like a blessing almost. Even if you're a little bit sad at the beginning and you're like, why is my partner leaving? Or why is this person leaving? It's actually, Jupiter is making a great favor and you're very quickly going to substitute this person. To make space for much fresher and beautiful energy in your life, much more optimistic. It's kind of like a blessing from God, the people that Jupiter is sending you now, while it's in your 7th house. So yeah, plus it can indicate that new clients are entering your life if you have your own business. You can, again, as I said, you can let go of some old ones, or you can just expand your clientele. If you're someone who is in the public eye, 7th house is very public, you would expand your public outreach, your popularity, your viewers, your fans, your clients that buy from you. I can give you an example. I have a friend who had Jupiter transit her 7th house in 2021, and her business exploded. She had an online business, and suddenly overnight she says, we sell products for $30,000 in 5 minutes, and then it takes us 2 weeks to prepare again. And she said that, and she was doing all at home. It exploded. So just telling, because especially they will be like, Jupiter removes all barriers, and Jupiter this year will be with Neptune. They'll conjunct together in April, on the 12th of April. Around that time, around April, you can expect some explosion of, if you have your own business, of clients, or like removing boundaries in regards to that. You can, so more clients, more people following on YouTube, if you have YouTube channel, or TikTok, or whatever it is. This is what usually more, or if you're someone in a business that works with 7th house activities, if you're a counselor, advisor, you can have a lot more clients now, an explosion, as I said, expansion there. Or if you work as a negotiator of some sort, or a bargainer of some sort, this is the 7th house. Again, big growth in your business, in your career. Very positive results there. If you're someone who makes salesperson, this is 7th house again. You have to negotiate, bargain, buy, sell. If you're a salesperson or trader person, or if you're trading, again, you can have great growth and gains coming through that while Jupiter is transiting that 7th house. With Neptune, it's even with Neptune there, it might be too good to be true, a bit like a miracle sometimes. Enjoy it while it lasts. But be careful with Neptune. There might be something deceptive too there. Just to mention, it is after all Pisces, it is Neptune, but Jupiter will tend to protect you there. Or it might be that you attract people that are super optimistic, too good. Wow, they kind of make you dream big and a bit unrealistic to an extent, There will be this theme going on there. Now, if you're in a career where you're signing contract of some sort, again, there can be explosion, expansion, growth there. There are other 7th house careers, but I can't think of them. But that's, what else it is? one of my teachers always told me you can relocate much easier when Jupiter transits the 7th house, because 7th house, first house is close to where you are. Here, 7th house is far away. So just mentioning this to you, and that it can give you, especially in foreign countries, he says, relocation to foreign countries, not in your own country. So just throwing this in as that there'll be a green light in regards to those things when Jupiter is in Pisces. Okay, and then Jupiter moves into your 8th house from May the 10th till the beginning of November, and then at the end of December again, it moves out. After that, it comes into Pisces. And by the way, I forgot to say, those of you who are Virgo, in the last 3 degrees of Virgo, so 27, 28, 29 degrees of Virgo, Sun, Moon, or Rising, you'd feel Jupiter the strongest, because Jupiter will be 3 times, will pass those degrees, and especially very strongly you'd feel Jupiter. So all those things that we talk, maybe you can meet someone new, start a new business partnership, start a very auspicious, productive business relationships or collaboration. You can gain a lot more clients, you can gain a lot more business or popularity, or your relationship can improve, or you can win some court case, 7th house, especially in November, December, when Jupiter is kind of on those degrees for the 3rd time, and for the 2nd and 3rd time, so 27, 28, 29 degrees of Virgo, you'd feel very powerfully the auspicious influence of Jupiter. The other earlier degrees, they would feel it faster, but you'd feel it for a longer period. You'd feel it 3 times, till April, and then December, then November, December. That will be very good time for you, with opportunities coming to you from others. But for all of you Virgos, just to summarize, Jupiter in the 7th house, asking, you will receive from others, plus you will attract people that help you in some way, that it's good for business, for expansion, to network, to connect to the right people. It improves relationships as well. And then Jupiter moves into your 8th house. Again, it's another other people house, which is the help you can receive from others as well. So you can receive a lot from others from May till November, and then again Jupiter will enter your 8th house in 2023, or the very end of 2022. So what can you expect materially? Let's say you can expect that the money your partner makes increases, for example, that he gets a promotion, or she gets, or you can receive help and support from another. Maybe your lover gives you money, or whatever, or maybe the government gives you money, or maybe it's support from others that comes, or maybe your clients start paying you more. Usually prices can increase if you have your own business when Jupiter is in the 8th house. By the way, I can tell when Jupiter, I got married when Jupiter transited my 7th house, but I didn't meet anyone new when Jupiter transited my 7th house. But when Jupiter transited my 8th house, lo and behold, I meet my soulmate. And it was so instantaneous, it was so intense, it was so sexual. So even Victor said 8th house is very much connected to soulmates. So even if Jupiter doesn't give you a partner when it transits the 7th house, there is a great chance when it transits the 8th house it can give it to you, like it did to me. And it was sudden, and it was kind of turned your life around, and it caused like a divorce, and it caused very fast marriage. That when Jupiter gives you a partner, it's usually very karmic, very fated. When Jupiter in the 8th house gives you a partner, it might start secretly, even initially. Just telling you one of the possibilities when Jupiter transits the 8th house. I've seen it in a few horoscopes, not just mine, because 8th house is a bit secretive, but it's intense, it's sexual, and it turns your life around. It can lead to very fast developments in your life. So again, it is connected to soulmates, and it might be also when you meet someone either secretly, privately, but also for me, that's when I met my husband and I got pregnant. Jupiter transiting the 8th house. 8th house is the house of the sex organs, and Jupiter is fertility. So it's usually fertility increases when Jupiter transits the 8th house. So if you want to get pregnant, that can be a time if you want to try, or it can happen by a surprise, like your 8th house is life and death, birth and rebirth and death. Sometimes Jupiter transiting the 8th house can expand the more painful topics as well. Sudden crisis happening very fast, because Jupiter 8th house is the house of crisis that spin out of control suddenly, and your life is totally different. But it's gonna, if this happens, it's gonna be some lucky change. You know, even if there is a death that occurs, because with Jupiter sometimes it can happen. I've seen it. It triggers the theme of the 8th house. And for me, what happened is that someone that I was for 5 years with passed away when Jupiter transits my 8th house. I was not with them anymore, but they were still very close to me. A big love, let's say. And I decided that I can't stay in that country anymore. So even though I was married, I said I need to run away. I need to be alone. So I went abroad to the States to make a big change, and that's where I met my husband. And the moment I met him, I divorced my other husband. So it was a huge change in my life. Jupiter in the 8th house turned my life around, because 8th house is the house of sudden reversals, big changes. But Jupiter speeds up that process and makes it very easy. It's going to be no-brainer for you if such, and when such changes come, it will be like, go, you know, I'm ready for this change. You're beyond ready, and you're excited about it, because Jupiter brings things in an excited way. Yes, if there is a death that happens, unfortunately there can be pain, but it's not necessarily that it be death, you know. Many times it's not at all that, but it's some big reversals that happens in your life. But this is such a blessing. You have no idea. You feel so much more joyful after that. It almost does like an emotional healing. Like when I fell in love with my partner, there was huge psychological and emotional healing that happened for me. I felt lighter. I felt like I physically became healthier as well. And I've seen when Jupiter transits the 8th house, even if something crisis happens that's unpleasant, like divorce, death, change of job, whatever, it's very quickly you're so much happier with it. Very quickly, it's, for example, someone dies and there is some benefit. You can gain like a big inheritance, for example. You can, if it's a divorce, you can get a big alimony, or 8th house is what you receive from others. You can receive something from another. You know, for example, if you've been waiting for someone to return your money, Jupiter enters your 8th house, you'll get them back, or you'll get them from another source back. If you've been waiting to, or if you have seen yourself with a partner, you can receive a bigger alimony, you know, when Jupiter transits the 8th house. Or if you're waiting for money from clients, can increase as well. For example, for me, when Jupiter transits the 8th house, my income in the business grew 3 times. 3 times. I was like, of course, Rahu was transiting there too, so it increased it furthermore. But even if it's 1/3 to increase, Jupiter will increase. It can also increase expenses, because Jupiter expands whatever it touches, expenses together with your partner or in investments you have, but it will bring you more returns back as well. 8th house is if you have a pension fund, if you have your money in hedge funds, if you have your money in the stock market, if you have some investment you've done with pooled money and resources with others, Jupiter can grow them and expand them as well. If you're in the stock market, you can find yourself seeing positive results, growth, and expansion. Another thing is, if you're in Jupiterian careers, you're going to thrive. What are Jupiter careers? That can be, if you're not Jupiter careers, in 8th house careers. If you're an astrologer, for example, because 8th house is about the mysteries of life. If you're an astrologer or the occult, astrologer, psychologist, healer, Reiki healer, or any kind of healer that heals others, you're going to become more successful. You're going to have great insight and more knowledge that comes to you. Even if you're not an astrologer, you can find yourself fascinated with occult knowledge, with conspiracy theories, with astrology, with such forbidden knowledge, let's call it, or hidden knowledge. And you can, even if you're not into such kind of secret knowledge, into conspiracy theories or into astrology or tarot, you'd notice yourself that you have more access to forbidden information or to very private information. And it can happen even without you looking for it. Somehow, a lot of confidential information can reach you when Jupiter is in the 8th house that others don't normally have access to. For example, I had someone who was when Jupiter was transiting the 8th house, they were invited to participate in a Mason society, and they got a lot of private insider information and private secret knowledge there. And a lot of, 8th house is secret societies, for example. So for someone, it played out in a very unique way. They joined the secret society and gain information that is only for certain select. In another way, you can, for example, if you're studying the occult, you can get such information that is secret to others, that only select do. Or if you're a psychologist, you can get more confidential information to others. Another person was given some very confidential information when Jupiter was transiting the 8th house, very confidential information about the stock market. It's called insider information, and they invested and they became they made quite a big gain, for example. So I'm making you think in this direction. There can be some hidden information that becomes available to you, or information that is not accessible to everyone, normal person, more private or confidential or very valuable information that comes to you, that you can benefit from, and you will benefit in some way. It can also indicate that there is some inheritance or insurance money that you get, or some money from tax. Or you can do something great with your money that you pay less taxes, for example, you get more money back from the tax services. That's another way Jupiter in the 8th house can manifest. You can get, as I said, but they can be more outgoing expenses and more incoming gains as well. And if you have to invest in something, I think you'd be at the right place at the right time to invest at the right stocks, because Jupiter kind of makes you lucky in that respect. Not because it makes you lucky, but it's like your intuition is stronger in such matters. Another way of the 8th house is that you can gain a lot of knowledge about life after death. You can become fascinated. So some of you might even have experience of death. I don't want to scare you, but you might have like a near-death experience, maybe in your dream, that or maybe departed loved ones, because Jupiter is knowledge. 8th house, the house of this very secretive, sacred things like death, the portals, different portals between different dimensions, where the forbidden knowledge, let's say, that very few people know. So you might start reading, for example, a lot of books about life after death, or about the psyche, the subconscious, psychology books, and so on, or the psychology of criminals, or watching a lot of criminal not sci-fi, but criminal documentaries, the mastermind of a criminal, about the mafia, about serial killers. That's one way. But for me, for example, how it was, I got super fascinated about life after death. But I've seen people, when Jupiter was transiting the 8th house, they got knowledge about death without even looking for it. They experienced near death, or they came out of their body. So if you're working on things like meditation or trying to connect with astral worlds, with invisible worlds, the 8th house is the gate into those invisible worlds, because it rules the chakras and the kundalini. It rules all apertures in the body. And Jupiter expands, so opens up your chakras much faster than normal. So if you're doing any such practices that are occult, you can, or even if you're not, you can get access to it without trying suddenly. So you kind of get out of your body, without trying to. Or you have a experience, out of body experience, when you're waking up, suddenly you pop, or you're falling asleep, you pop out of your body and you see astral travel, something like that. Or in your dreams, you can get information from departed ones or from the other side. Plus, if you're dealing with any career that is psychology, astrology, you'll have incredible insights, because Jupiter expands the knowledge there, especially on the psychological level. Also, you can have some kind of spontaneous healing that happens, because the 8th house is very much about healing the astral body. When Jupiter transits there, speeds up the healing process, because the 8th house is an astral house, where the astral body is where we keep the traumas and the pains in the emotional body from past lifetimes or this lifetime. And when this astral body is clogged, we start developing physical ailments and feeling down, emotionally heavy, gloomy, dark. Well, Jupiter goes there and puts a light into this dark basement of yours, of the subconscious, of those heavy feelings, of those astral traumas. And you can have powerful work if you're working with a psychologist or someone that works with the soul, or it can even happen spontaneously that you have sudden realizations about the past, about traumas, that you remember spontaneously certain traumas and you release them, because Jupiter really speeds up, expands this process of releasing of the trauma and transformation of the trauma and releasing it from the astral body. That's why even physical health issue problems can spontaneously be released and healed when Jupiter transits the 8th house. So I wish that for you, or healing from loss of a loved one, or very fast healing after, if there is, because Jupiter transiting the 8th house can introduce some fast change in your life, that it's kind of shocking, and that can deprive you from parts of your identity, and you feel like you're dying. When the ego dies, you feel like that's who I am. This has been my job forever. This has been my wife forever. This, and it brings such shocking experience, and you feel like part of your ego is dying. But the healing happens very fast when Jupiter transits there. Plus, Jupiter in the 8th house can bring you sexual healing. I've personally experienced it. Here I'm alive, and it's honestly that was one of the most powerful experiences when I met my husband. I had a sexual healing. I think it sped up my Jupiter in the 8th house, sped up the transformation because I was in love, sped up the vibration so fast of my chakras that I removed so much trauma. Plus, it can improve your sex life. 8th house is the ability to merge with another almost in a tantric way. You can have some tantric knowledge there, or you can even want to study something about tantra, about intimacy, about psychology. This is a great time to start studying either astrology, psychology, do some research even in science, because 8th house likes to dig under the surface, and Jupiter will reveal you big secrets there, very in-depth secrets, a lot of knowledge it will give you. Okay, and if you're in careers that the 8th house, or emergency services, other people's finances like banking, or if you're a surgeon of some sort, or if you're a occultist, astrologer, if you're a healer, if you're a crisis manager of any sort, you're going to expect a lot of expansion, possibilities for your business to grow or work to grow as well, and so on. Okay, so these are the two areas. So expansion, money coming to you through others, mutual finance, even from tax you can benefit. I'm not going to repeat it, but this is how you can benefit from this Jupiter in the 8th house and the 7th. So remember, both they are other people oriented. Good things can come to you from others. If you ask for help as well, you can receive. If you partner with others, your finances can also expand. Your good things can happen in the life of your partner, through your partner. Some changes in your partnerships that happen, they will be for good, even if at moments they might feel whoa, you'd notice how good it will turn out after that. And meeting someone, even as I said, well, Jupiter is in the 7th house or in the 8th, there's even very strong sexual connection there, or soul connection in some way. Now, the next thing we have to look at is the nodes, the north and south node. For you, Virgo, they are moving from the 10th house at the beginning of the year into your 9th house. The north node, and the south node is always opposite, is going in your 3rd house. Wherever the north node goes, this is where we always grow a lot more, and we materially manifest. Then we became very passionate about. And wherever the south node goes, we let go of that area of life. Well, the north node will be in your 9th house till the middle of 2023. So for a year and a half. So these themes will continue for quite a while, and they'll be especially potent around the eclipses, which in 2022 will be happening in April, May, and in around October, November. So April and May and October and November, you'll feel very strongly those themes of, during the eclipses, of those nodes. So what are those themes? Rahu, the north node, which is also symbolized by a dragon's head, which is insatiable and wants more and more and more to eat and eat, is going to your ninth house. You can become very passionate about ninth house matters, about philosophy, higher knowledge, ideology. You might join some new ideological, political, spiritual group, for example, especially based on sustainability, because it's in Taurus, or based on some ideology based on resources of the earth, or on finances and so on, which are very practical kind of ideology. But you'll find yourself that you're discovering new horizons, new ideologies, that your mind is kind of becoming very and that you're very interested in meeting people from very different backgrounds. So you're going to meet quite a few, especially Jupiter, when it's in the 7th house, already allows, it gives you access to meet foreigners or people from faraway places, because it is Jupiter after all. And it brings more people in your life, whether through your clients following or other one-to-one close people. But Rahu in the 9th house is foreign places, foreign people, or people from a different social background, higher, for example. Rahu can bring such people into your life, or very, very much interest to become member or to join organizations, or to affiliate yourself in some way with people from spiritual movements, or from a higher knowledge, or from people that have higher, that you have similar ideologies with. But Rahu definitely can make you expand this 9th house, which means you can manifest higher education. You can become very passionate about knowledge, taking classes, courses. Now, every time Rahu transits the 9th house, for me, from the ascendant, it was most recently. Well, not most recently, but some time ago, I basically went crazy with taking courses, and that's when I also started thinking I want to teach as well. 9th house is to teach and to learn higher knowledge, so you can become passionate about such matters. And wherever Rahu goes, if you do the things of this house, you can have the fastest growth, the fastest, like a few jumps. And actually, even if you're starting to study something, you might jump, instead of starting from beginner. With Rahu, you can jump straight into intermediary, into or advanced. You can jump a bit ahead, way over your head. But fake it you make it a little bit with Rahu in the 9th house. For example, you can apply it to university and get accepted, because Rahu will give you access, but some place that is kind of quite academic, erudite, but you'll still get access to some very privileged university or place that you want to study, or you're going to study with someone that you consider very privileged and gives you access to very privileged knowledge, let's say. But you can find yourself a bit way overhead because of your over eagerness. So remember this, maybe try to make sure that you're ready to study that and know it. But Rahu is just when we jump before we're ready, basically. But sometimes we need to jump before we're ready, rather than dip our toe. Oh, let me warm the toe, let me warm the ankle. Sometimes you just jump and you have to learn to swim in the cold water. And and Rahu tends to give this passion. So you kind of go way over your head with something instead of being tentative and instead of being cautious. But I think that's necessary sometimes, and so you're going to dive into learning, into teaching. Or if you dive into teaching, for example, it might be way above your head, maybe you haven't done it before. It's something very new, but you'll be very fascinated with it. And again, fake it till you make it. In the process, you'll figure it out. And the 9th house also, when Rahu transits there, can give you access to higher knowledge. So good time again to study astrology, especially with Jupiter in the 8th house, because astrology is both the 8th house, the secrets of the universe, the psychological side of it, and the 10th house and the 8th and the 9th house, which is higher wisdom, higher knowledge. But if you want to study anything, that can be, Rahu can give you access to quite prestigious places to study or to teach as well, or to be very passionate about teaching and learning, even if you're a little bit before your time, because Rahu, basically, why does it jump before its time? Because Rahu in the mythology is, he wanted to be a god, so he tricked the gods to drink the juice of immortality, but it was not his time to become a god yet. And he was a demon, so he had to work harder to become a god. So he tricked the gods and drank the juice of immortality and became a god. So with Rahu, and I've seen it, it's so true, when you transit somewhere in your horoscope, you can really put yourself between the big fishes before it's your time there, or before in some environment, before you have really learned it, before you've taken the lawful right way to climb up there to the mountain around. You kind of get what's that called? Like a quick, so like taking a lift up the mountain top, and so you can get, it allows you that, basically, so you can get suddenly in this 9th house, you can get citizenship in a foreign country, you can get suddenly relocated to a foreign country because 9th house rules that, or access to a foreign country that you didn't have, like a visa, without taking the normal steps usually sometimes. Or it can be expedited, Rahu expedited, maybe because you have connections. Maybe get a visa because you have connections, or get to university because you have connections, or get to teach somewhere because you have connections. But Rahu is very opportunistic, so grab that opportunity, I guess. If you feel you can do it, because it will be great, fast results, and you can gain a lot through it. You can become very fascinated and passionate about foreign countries, going to foreign places, and get access to such foreign import, export, trade with foreign places, or if you're in any of such careers, or tourism, you can have fast growth and expansion, or fast promotion up the steps. So if you're in import, export, or shipping of some sort, or if you're in tourism of some sort, or in teaching of some sort, 9th house, or counseling and advising, being a life coach, whatever, you can have sudden rise up with Rahu there. And you can find yourself being quite preachy, quite fascinated with preaching the truth, or even being given some prophecy about the future. So if you go to a psychic, even if you have not earned yet that prophecy information, you can get that access to that knowledge. Higher 9th house is knowledge of the future. So some of you, it can increase your desire to have access, and that's why sometimes fascination for astrology happens. If you're studying astrology, when Rahu transits your 9th house, you can have some incredible insights about the future. Or you can study, for example, the predictive astrology, and you can be very passionate about it, and excited about that. Or you can, if you're not into astrology, you can be studying something about the future, reading about the future a lot more, future prophecy, predictions, get interested in such things, or make prophecies and predictions yourself. Now, Ketu though will be in your 3rd house. Whatever goes in the 3rd house, whatever Ketu goes, you get less of. Well, the 3rd house is, what are you going to get less of? Well, interactions with your close people around, your normal mates, because you're more interested in people with very unusual views, with different belief systems. Rahu in the 9th house, people from different states, different cultures. But you're maybe going to lose it, or you're interested more in spiritual topics rather than reading the newspapers, 3rd house. So you might find yourself that you're finding that reading the newspaper, watching TV, it's a waste of time. You become disinterested. Or if you were reading before, social media, scrolling all the time, the 3rd house is that you're like, this is a waste of time. I want to read Rudolf Steiner, some philosopher. I want to read, anthroposophy or astrology, something high-minded. This is what Rahu in the 9th house wants. About the future of humanity, about the big questions in life. And not those, I don't have time to waste on everyday conversations. What are you? How are you doing? Did you watch the football? This kind of everyday conversations, interactions, become disinterested, and you kind of distance yourself from them, You don't read the news, what's happening on every day, unless it connects to the whole, to the collective. It also might lose interest towards some of your hobbies. For example, you like to ride skis on the weekend. This third house rules those things. Or you like to knit, or you like to, I don't know, play the piano, whatever, or ride bikes. Well, these are your interests that Ketu in the third house, you might get disconnected from them for a little bit, for a year and a half, or let go of some hobbies that are just kind of wasting your time a little bit, and you realize that, and you won't find as much joy and interest in some of your hobbies that you're doing, and let them go. You can also let go of some acquaintances of yours. Third house is, especially, some of you might even delete your social media accounts, because Ketu is let go, release, I'm not interested, like stop going on TikTok or whatever, spend less time there. But you might get less, you might be, because third house, what do you prefer to read? The more spiritual things. Ketu is more spiritual. And also sometimes you might notice that your communications are a little bit disconnected. In everyday environment, when someone's talking to you and you zone out, because Ketu is the dragon's tail, it has no head, so you can become a bit spaced out. Ketu is spaced out. In the third house of thinking and being present in the present moment is the third house. Like, oh, what I'm doing, I'm washing the plates, I'm watching TV, I'm really watching it. Or you're talking something to me, I'm listening. But with Ketu today, you might notice even sometimes problems with hearing when transiting the third house, so that you don't hear so well. You're not as good listener. You're better at teaching and telling others stuff now with Rahu in the ninth house, but not so good at hearing. Plus, Ketu in the third house is telling you've been gathering enough information. Now it's time to go and teach. Rahu in the ninth house. You've been gathering a lot of, you don't need to know every single piece of the puzzle. You don't need to have every single piece of the puzzle. And to have every piece of information for you to make sense. Learn to trust your higher self and your intuition. So that's another thing. You really need to, Rahu in the ninth house. Ninth house is your higher mind, the higher mind and intuition. Ketu is the lower mind, the parrot, the monkey in the head, That is your internal narrative. And Ketu can allow you to put space in your internal narrative, even with meditation. That's why Rahu in the ninth house can get very interested in spiritual practices and higher knowledge. So that's a good time if you want to learn meditation when Ketu transits the third house, because it stops the thoughts. Ketu has no thoughts, it has no head in the third house. Or it can just jumble up your thoughts a little bit. You can find yourself a little bit more disorganized on an everyday level, in your thinking in particular, a little bit like with short-term memory, where did I put that? Or what did you just say? Kind of thing. Why? I was in my own head type, There is this thing to be a bit aware of. But the third house is also siblings, relatives, acquaintances. You might let go of some of them. Or maybe they move away, or you disconnect for some time. Or in extreme cases can be a loss of a neighbor or sibling or mate of some sort, letting go of that. Sometimes it's the cars and vehicles. They might be sometimes giving problems when Ketu transits there. Or you might let go of your car or something, I don't know. Or let go of some way of transportation, for example. Okay, while you're more passionate about flying, but not third house is, you might find it easier to fly long distance and to go to long distance trips than to short trips, for example. It will be more hassle to go on a couple of days, weekend get away, than to go for 2 weeks away to the Maldives or somewhere else, Anyway, that's the Rahu and Ketu influence. So learn to trust your higher mind and your intuition, not so much, Ketu in the third house is let go of relying on the mind and every fact. And sometimes trust the bigger vision, the intuition, Go with your gut, with your and higher vision rather than with the lower mind, with the monkey mind. That's confusing you, and you'll never be wrong while Rahu is in your ninth house. If it was the opposite, if Rahu was in your third house, I would say sometimes don't listen to you need to check the facts instead and listen to what others around are saying rather than, because you're gonna have more success if you pay attention to others and what they're saying. But with Rahu in the ninth house, I say no. Ketu in the third house, don't listen to what others are saying so much right now. Doesn't mean be horrible to them, but it's somehow your intuition. Rahu is what's going to give you more. Your intuition will be more correct to write you in the right place. Okay, and learn to trust you can become super passionate. Rahu is to become very passionate about self-growth, higher knowledge. It's taking courses on self-growth, on self-knowledge of some sort. Those courses like, there's dream, manifest, hope, figure out, such kind of self-improvement. That's the word for the ninth house. Self-improvement, to understand yourself better. This is great passion when it happens. One thing to warn you with Rahu down transiting the ninth house. You might be drawn into fake teachers or teachers that when Rahu passes, no longer is in your ninth house, you might no longer be interested in those teachings. It's temporary. Things with Rahu are temporary. It's not a physical planet. But obviously, whatever you need to learn during that time, you'd go in that direction. It's necessary for you. But after that, when Rahu moves out by mid-2023 from your ninth house, you might lose interest towards this line of study, towards this teacher, in some way. But for now, it might be necessary because it will give you some quick access to some information or to some place you want to get to or some vision. All right, and now let's see. We covered the most important planets, Saturn, Jupiter, and Rahu. Now we can see a little bit more month by month to see with the smaller, faster moving planets. From the beginning, January, the whole January, Venus, and part of January, so from the middle of January till the end of January, Mercury is also retrograde in your fifth house, and Venus, the whole January, is retrograde in your fifth house, and they both turn direct at the start of February. The first 2-3 days of February, both Venus and Mercury turn direct. Venus actually the last day of January, but in January and 2021, you're going to have two retrograde but nice planets in your fifth house. Some of you can be time to reconnect with an old boyfriend or girlfriend, to see them from a different line, and to see that, you can release that pain or whatever. I remember when I had both Mercury and Venus retrograde in my seventh house. It happens once in 2014. Venus was retrograde in Leo. I think Mercury for some time was retrograde around the same time. That was a few weeks before I got married. And I went to my town to be with my parents before the marriage. And I ended up spending 10 days with two ex-boyfriends. We were hanging out all the time. And we really reconnected very well. And a lot of the pain that I felt, because everyone has a bit of resentments of old relationships, it was resolved. We became good friends. We had a lot of laughter. We remembered the past, and all the negative things were dissolved. So for me, it played out really well. So I'm giving you this example. I hope it plays out for some of you like that. It's not necessarily that you would physically reconnect sometimes with an old partner, even if you've had a lot of hurt, because in one of those relationships I had a lot of hurt because it's kind planets, Venus, Mercury. It was resolved in my head then because we became friendly terms. But I've seen also people, some of you might reconnect and restart an old relationship. So December 2021, January in particular, very strongly 2022, there is those themes. So you might be thinking a lot about the past, romantic relationship, if someone hurt you, whatever, and trying and seeing it from a different perspective, or there might be actual reconnection online or whatever. Or if you are already in a relationship, you're happy, you don't want to go back to the past, or you might be thinking about past relationship, but it might be time that some of you sit and have a conversation with your partner how to reconnect deeper. If there's something you're dissatisfied about your relationship, how to connect in such a way that it's more satisfying, more balanced, more fair for both of you. And when they start moving direct by February, you'll have improved emotional connection, love connection together. Maybe some of you would go back to doing a few things that you used to love before as a couple. Maybe you used to sneak out and make love on the terrace, and you revisit such kind of fun stuff you did. Or maybe you used to go to the cinema and you really loved it. Or you might revisit some old places you love to do with your loved one around that time. Or revive somehow the love, or have to have important conversation if you're dissatisfied how things are about a romantic situation, to readdress it, or you might get to do something romantically that you haven't done in a while, but that used to be very loving, pleasant for you, and you enjoy it a lot again. But for some of you, might not be so easy. Depends what aspect Mercury and Venus are doing in your personal horoscope, and it very much depends on your personal horoscope. So it's more like a private reading that needs to be done. But for some of you, it might be reconsidering a relationship and saying, I don't think maybe that's not fair. Let's see if we can fix it. If not, that might be the time when some of you take a very definitive decision that it's an end of a relationship, because there is no more juice in that relationship. There is no more desire from one or the other side to make an effort to readjust, to be nicer, to communicate, to make a compromise of some sort. Then for some of you Virgos, that can be the end of a romantic relationship of some sort. On another level, it might have nothing to do with relationship. For some of you, it might be a child is coming back to live with you, for example. Venus, Mercury retrograde in your 5th house. Or a child is coming back to see you. Or your child is going through some important period where they're working through something. You might have to help them a little bit. They have to put some extra efforts. Their retrograde planets need extra effort. Or you're having some important conversation with your child so you can have better relationship. And you need to redirect the relationships to make it more balanced, more fair, to set new rules of the game, which is Mercury. So you might have to do those things and change things around in your relationship somehow, or in the life of your child. Or it might be a creative project that this Venus Mercury retrograde are trying to address in January, part of February, that you're working extra hard on doing some creative project or some creative idea, whether it's a website, whether it's you're doing something for the business, but you're using your own original ideas and you're having to put extra efforts, and it might be delayed a little bit and you have to redo it. But by the time it turns direct, you'd realize that the results are 3 times better than what originally was. So don't get frustrated. Yes, you can get frustrated, but you'll see the results if you put the efforts, will be better after that. Okay, and then they start moving direct in February. We still have a lot of Leo, a lot of 5th house going on there. Mars will be there as well, so some creative project, as I said, some business project if it's your own business that you might be doing, or romantic matters, or it also might be revisiting fun places you have to do, but it continues to be a lot of fun. And then in February, they're moving direct there. Actually, Mercury is retrograde a little bit in your 6th house as well this January, so they might be revising of some old work, some delay with some work, or re-examining your work situation and your health situation as well, and redoing a different plan for your health situation, or different plan for a workout, a different plan for in your daily routines. There might be a bit of chaos while Mercury is retrograde in your 6th house, partly as well, because he'll be retrograde also partly in your 6th house. So you have to reschedule in January, from the middle of January, certain things till the end, and readdress them, so things, there's some changes happening at work that you have to, or redo some work project as well. And then they go direct here in Capricorn in February. Big focus again on this 5th house in February with Mars there. Then they start going gradually back into the 6th house. March and April, huge focus on the 6th house of work, health matters. That's when you have to be most cautious, because Saturn and Mars are going to be retrograde in your 6th house. So really starting a new cycle there for 2 years. For 2 years ahead, where you have to be doing something hard starting from April, like maybe start a new workout routine. And the 6th house we talked about already at the beginning, so all such 6th house matters themes will be extremely important around that springtime. And some escalations of health problems can be more noticeable around the Saturn-Mars conjunction, which is a great sign for you, which is around around March, basically. Saturn conjunction. Saturn-Mars conjunction is around March, sorry. And you really have to be cautious with your health around that time. Take more preventative measures and do a really good plan how to be healthier, with the foods you eat, with the exercise you do. Take this seriously this year, basically. And you'll be quite busy working around that time. Quite a few responsibilities with, March, you'd feel it. April strongly as well. But then getting to April, we have the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction in your 7th house that I talked a little bit about. Maybe some very spiritual person can enter your life. Maybe someone can introduce you to some very spiritual topic, or it might be even a relocation to foreign country. The conjunction is on the 12th of April, but the whole April you can feel it. Expansion as well. Someone entering, becoming without boundaries, having someone that you're merging more without boundaries with, or business partner of some sort as well coming. May, we have Jupiter entering your 8th house. We talked about that. And Mercury goes retrograde from the 10th of May till June the 3rd. So 20 days in May mostly. You feel so the whole May, a bit the pre-shadow period as well, is Mercury retrograde. And it's going to be retrograde in Gemini and in Taurus. So for you, Virgo, that is from around the 10th. It goes retrograde, 10th of May goes retrograde in your 10th house. Some work project you might be redoing. You might be asked to do extra effort, so you're rethinking a career position or career act of yours. Or maybe some important conversation with authority figures or boss figures that might escalate, and there's something important to solve there. Or some work project that you're working it where you have to redo it, or you have to use extra Mercury skills, communication, writing, speaking, whatever skills you've acquired, that you have to do 3 times more effort there. And by the time it turns direct, sometimes in June, you can have some very good results here with the career sphere after the extra effort. But there might be some delays that happen with career, or there might be a job proposition that came to you earlier, a job proposition that comes back to you now. Maybe a job that you haven't finished before it comes, or maybe you applied for a job and it comes to you, or maybe something that you thought about, like a project, comes back to you to make it happen now when Mercury is retrograde there. But a big part of the retrograde action of Mercury in May is also in your 9th house. It might be getting back to complete a journey or some educational course of yours, or reconnecting with a teacher from the past, or working on some teaching project, or brushing up some knowledge from before, some knowledge, higher knowledge, or higher wisdom of some sort, or having to work and prepare on some higher knowledge or teaching project of some sort, or maybe delay with some documents connected to foreign countries for a little bit. Maybe you need to anything to do with education, with university acceptance. You might have to redo an exam, or you might have to study extra hard for an exam, preparing, for example, for exams in May. And you have to do it right, just that time at least. Or you have to, sorry about that, or you might have to try, put extra documents for a visa or something like that. Or there might be some delay on a teaching project of yours that you have to perfect a little bit or something like that. And then or some travels abroad that you need to be a bit more careful, unless these travels are happening because you've planned them from before and now you can finally make them happen. It's something you've been planning or hoping for already. And then in September is the last Mercury retrograde. I'm not talking about Saturn and Jupiter retrograde. They happen every year. I told you around what time they happen. But Mercury retrograde is happening in September the 9th to October. So the whole of September, basically. The last Mercury retrograde. And it's happening in Libra, which is your second house. And partly in Virgo. So the whole September, first you might be rebudgeting, having to be a bit more careful with your finances because maybe you have to extra expenses that comes around September, or you have to move your money around or your investment somehow around, or reconsider something there, or maybe do some spring or autumn cleaning, whatever you want to call it, get rid of certain things, or maybe you can get access to some money that you didn't have access before that comes back to you as well, or money that's owed to you in some way, or maybe some old possessions come back to you, or maybe you start taking your old possessions and trying to bring them back to life, or maybe you get into antiques for a little bit retrograde, or maybe you just you have to be more careful with your possessions that they don't break, tear, loss, or some kind of misplacing them around September, and devices and phones, or maybe rebudget, reimagine your finances somehow. And then Mercury is retrograde in September in the last 6 degrees of Virgo. So if you're born from 24 degrees Virgo, even 23, 24, even 23 till 30 degrees in Virgo, Sun, Moon, or Rising, this September Mercury retrograde will be the most powerful for you. You'd really feel it. Something very important will happen. It will be very much connected also to your career because Mercury rules your 10th house. So you might take some very important decision in a different direction in regards to your career. You might have to work extra hard in regards to your career. For example, on some project, using the best of your ability, of your skills to communicate, write, speak, or whatever skills is being required at your work. And you are going to, maybe by October, you might have really good project, but you have to redo it a few times, fix a few things, and things will be a little bit unpredictable in September while Mercury is retrograde in your sign, especially the second part of September from the 15th onwards when Mercury is in your sign. The last 15 days of September, the information will speed up, a lot of information being there, but mercurial activities like writing, speaking, documents, papers can be very important in September. You have to be dealing with such things, if something you have missed, fix it. Any kind of devices, communication devices, you might have to have some repairs, fix something in September, or maybe redo your website, see if there are problems in the website and fix them, or problems with documents and fix them and improve them and give a much better product or whatever mercurial thing it is by October. But there is intensified effort, mental effort that's required of you in September. It might be connected to your career or dealing with some authority figures, some negotiations there with important authority figures, because Mercury rules your 10th house as well, or boss figures, or as I said, maybe rethinking some career and direction of careers as well in some sort. Okay, and then the other big event is Mars going retrograde. Whoa, it's gonna go retrograde in your 10th house. I think that was one thing you're gonna feel very strongly, guys. And especially if your Mars will be retrograde from the degrees, let me see, from in your 10th house in Gemini, from September it enters Gemini, and it will be there till March 2023 for 6-7 months almost. So the theme of the 10th house becomes super prevalent the whole time from September 2022 till March 2023. And if you remember, Saturn is in your 6th house, which is work behind the scenes and all those things. Now Mars is going to become retrograde and stay such a long time in your 10th house from September already. And it becomes retrograde from the end of October. So November, December, and part of January 2023, it will be retrograde. This is when the most difficult part will be, where they'll be making a big change with your career. And as I said, Saturn, for some of you, is trying to make the same, rethink your career direction and so on. And now we have another planet in the career house getting involved with that. So it will be a big year for you, Virgos, in regards to career, in regards to work, in regards to worldly responsibilities. Mars will give you a very rare opportunity, which won't repeat in 17 years or more, if it repeats at all, actually, when Mars will go retrograde again in your 10th house, to really make a big change, because Mars is about change, something new. Mars brings new energy in your career, in your goals, and you'll start feeling that from September. And when it's retrograde, maybe you'll make the change, November, December 2023. Some of you might change a job, others might redo their business somehow, others might be working super hard with 3 times more efforts on some long-term project, on some project with their career, with deadlines and so on. For example, I remember when my ex-husband had Mars retrograde in the 10th house, he had a huge project with his career with deadlines. He was gone from 8 in the morning till 1 o'clock at night, and it was very stressful, basically. But when Mars turned direct, the project completed, and so for you, maybe next year, 2023, that ended up with a big promotion because of the really hard work he put, because Mars is hard worker, like a soldier, perfecting. So there might be the need to perfect your business, your career in some way, to change something there. But there might be a power struggle with the boss figure. I also always see that when Mars goes retrograde in the 10th house, with some authority figure that is quite, maybe even verbally a bit sharp and angry. There might be some clash with authority figures, with institutions, with bosses. So be a bit cautious, especially during the retrograde period. And but if during the direct period you've created already the problem with bosses and authority figures, the retrograde period is when the situation will be, has to be untangled up, and it gets even more complicated. With father figures is the 10th house. There might be some more crisis there with the father figure because of that, or with boss figure. If you're your own boss, you might be really busy with some project. With authority figures, with police and so on, you have to be a bit more careful, especially during the retrograde period. So for just telling you in case, because it is Mars after all. And also what you say publicly might have a strong impact on your reputation. This is the 10th house. It's in the sign of Gemini. If you're too critical or too sharp, I believe in honesty. You have to be honest. You just have to be a little bit more cautious, especially from the end of October till the end of the year, because authority figures can harm you in some way with this Mars retrograde day in the 10th house if you're not too cautious, But at the same time, you might have to be fighting some battle. So if you're Mars wants to correct, what is it? If you're either too pushy, say if you have some business plans, goals, and you're too pushy, that can really create problems with authority figures, with institutions, and it can backfire. Or if you've been too ruthless with your career and with your goals and with your ambitions, you'll have a problem. You might have problems with authorities even, or with other boss figures, some big competition there. Or if you've been the opposite, like, I'm too afraid to take an action, to stand up for my rights with the authorities or bosses, well, Mars will have to, the other has two extremes of Mars, either one or the other. This is what the retrograde period of Mars wants to correct. This 6 month stay of Mars in your 10th house. So learning to be the right amount of initiative and ambitious and driven and assertive with your career, with your ambitions. But definitely Mars in the 10th house for 7 months will be huge. If you're an ambitious person, will be huge bonus for your career. You can get so much done. You'd overcome some big difficulty while Mars is retrograde with your career. You'd achieve something that you're probably very proud of after that, and you're gonna reap the rewards 2023 by the time Mars turns direct, and maybe by then you can be promoted. You might have been able to expand your career, your reputation, your business as a consequence of, overcoming that difficulty or overcoming that deadlines and creating that project or whatever, or doing that work that's required from you. All right, so this is Mars in the 10th house, and now let's look a little bit at Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Well, Virgo, Uranus will be making a sextile to you, but only for those of you who are born from 14 to 18 degrees in Virgo. So remember, 14 to 18 degrees Sun, Moon, or Ascendant. Uranus is making a trine from your 9th house. This is definitely, you might study something new then, you might find interest towards esoteric knowledge, higher knowledge, and do some very exciting travels. Plus Uranus making a trine to 14 to 18 degrees can be, if it's your sun, for example, can be great for your career and new opportunities for your career. You can suddenly have a rise in your career. You can start, if your career is in technologies, in social media, in anything on the internet, anything alternative and esoteric, great success there. Great opportunities to develop, or even if it's in some kind of digital currencies and so on. And markets, when it's connected to large groups of people, which is Uranus, you can have fantastic results. You can meet some very interesting new people, Uranian in nature, a man that is Uranian in nature, open-minded, quirky, unusual, very knowledgeable, genius of some sort that breaks the routine in your life. It can be very good for romantic relationships that are very exciting, whether it's your sun, moon, or ascendant in those degrees, with some new fresh energy or revival, excitement there, romantically as well. If it's your moon, you can relocate in an easy, non-disruptive way, excitable, to a new place, so you can find emotional connections that are exciting, or a place that feels lively, exciting. Or your house, you renovate something new, bring fresh energy there. It happens in an easy way. If it's your ascendant, your appearance can change in a positive way. You can definitely travel a lot more in an exciting place and meet exciting foreign people. And you can feel more alive with new ideas, with inspirations. Your mind is opening up, you're expanding, you feel like you're coming out of winter. You're excitable, nervous, excitable energy, but not in a negative way. And your relationships, because the ascendant is connected to relationships, can be revived, rejuvenated with an interesting person, new energy, and that is not disruptive, that is not on and off, that is feels just exciting, maybe more astrology, more alternative people around you of some sort. If you're from 22 to 26 degrees in Pisces, in Virgo, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26 degrees in Virgo, you're going to have a Neptune transit, but one of the harder Neptune transits. Neptune will be in your 7th house, opposing your ascendant. So 22, 23, 24, 25, even 26 degrees. Neptune opposing your sun, moon, or ascendant. Now that's a bit tougher. Now those of you, only you, have to be a bit more careful not to be deceived by someone else, or maybe to look at others too unrealistically, sometimes even be kind of conned sometimes. I remember I had a client who had this transit, and she divorced during that transit, because it's 1.5 years long, almost 2. She divorced because she found out her partner was cheating on her. So Neptune can bring such connotations sometimes, and she got very disappointed, something hidden that comes to the surface. And then she remarried within that 1 year. And I was like, be careful with getting remarried, because she fell in love very much, because Neptune, you never know fully everything when it's making hard aspect. And a year later, when the Neptune transit finished, she says, I found out the new person I fell in love with, he liked men as well. And she says, I couldn't stay with him. There was a secret he had, basically. So be careful. I'm not telling you all of you will experience that, but there might be something that is not quite clear about your partner or people in your life that you might get disappointed with if you put too much trust in them. Yes, Jupiter is also transiting your 7th house, so there'll be good people as well. But you specifically, from 22 to 25 degrees in Virgo, there is a chance for deception and being misled. And I had a friend who had this recently as well for 2 years. And she fell in love first with a mad person. He had like mental health issues. And then with someone who was drinking too much within these 2 years. And then with someone who was a bit kind of again, kind of mentally a bit unbalanced, And these were affairs. So Neptune can have a connection to affairs as well, and longing for someone. She says, I've always been such a great judge of character, and I've always chosen so rationally. How did I choose such? And she says, I could see that they're not well. I could see one had a drinking problem, but I could not stop loving them. And almost like loving unconditionally, even if you can see the weakness of the other. This is how Neptune loves, despite of that. And sometimes maybe you have a karmic debt to someone and you have to love them like that. I even remember another friend who, during Neptune hard transit to her ascendant, or sun or moon, it happens, she fell in love with her boss, and she says, like, I feel so sorry, he had cancer and he just killed, but I want to make him happy. Even if he has just a few years to live, I'll make him happy and I'll do anything for him. And they had an affair, and I was like, he's like 20 years older than you. He's like overweight. He kind of smells even. And she said, doesn't matter. I find him fascinating, and it's like Neptune. Oh my God, you're saying these are horror stories. Why are you telling us that? But you can be in love. You can fall in love with someone who is married already. Or you just might yearn for someone from distance. But it also feels quite romantic this period, because you kind of, even though you might notice, oh, this person is a loser or is not everything they say they are, despite of that, you're like, it doesn't matter, I love them the way they are. So the higher vibration of Neptune is to connect us to living and loving without expecting back. So for a little bit, you feel what it's like how God loves us unconditionally. Because you don't expect this person to give back to you something, you don't, so it's about feeling unconditional love for a little bit. So Neptune makes it possible for us to feel what it's like. Yes, God, we cheat on God, we lie, we do all the wrong things, and he still loves us and forgives us. So we become more forgiving and loving when Neptune is there. Maybe that's what it's. And even if someone harms you, forgive them. Don't keep resentment. This is the lesson of Neptune. Let it go. Love transforms. Love never dies. It transforms in different ways. You'd find somewhere else to love. Of course, with Neptune, there is a danger. You can give a finger and they can take the whole hand, because they notice you're more vulnerable, you're more compassionate, willing to give. But sometimes, we need to get in touch with our compassionate side. So in order to avoid being taken advantage in the wrong way from others, then just try and give to others some of your time in a more organized way. Maybe give to charity, maybe help someone in need, but give yourself like a boundaries. I'm doing this just 2 times a week for 2 hours or something like that. Or maybe give to clients. This is another remedy, so you don't have losses through others. Maybe give to clients 1 free reading per month, say if you're an astrologer, or 1 free service per month. So otherwise, Neptune is about losses. You can lose something through others, or you can lose a partner sometimes. Neptune can dissolve a partner. You can lose a job if it's your son. You can get dissatisfied and lose a job, or you can lose, place of living with the moon, or relocate when Neptune opposes the moon. And when Neptune opposed my moon, I remember I fell in love with someone who was married. Like, it's ridiculous. And I said, I don't care. I'll love them from a distance. I want to love this person, and it is what it is. And I didn't know they were married till it was too late. Anyway, so just giving you some horror Neptune stories. But also With Neptune around, you become very musical. You start listening to music, you start praying, you become more spiritual, you become more in touch with your soul, you become more soulful. Also, you might become more drawn to, escaping addictions. Those degrees only for 22 till 25. So be careful. If you're prone to drinking, you can start drinking too much. If you're prone to hidden vices, your hidden vices can escalate, and hopefully Saturn in the 6th house can help a little bit there, put order and regulate such addictions. But only Neptune does it, so you realize you're not always in control. And sometimes you have to turn to a higher power, and sometimes there are forces beyond your power. I'm kind of feel a bit helpless over Neptune, because it's the lessons of unconditional love are usually the most difficult ones, and they usually take us on a spin and on a journey of seeing how helpless you are. You feel like you're in the middle of the ocean without direction, so you can feel demotivated, confused a little bit, maybe too much bohemian, just wanting to drink or party, a little bit lost. There can be a feeling of being lost, and it is okay. If you're going through that, it is okay. It's sometimes okay not to work for a little bit if you can't. It's sometimes okay just to take care of the soul. Even though Saturn might be asking you to take care of the everyday events, only you, those degrees, have the green light to a little bit to disconnect from this reality and to connect to higher realities, to listen to movies, to escape through watching TV. Try to avoid escaping through drugs and things like that if you can regulate more. But you can find yourself a bit more disorganized and so on. But if you're in Neptunian careers, you can thrive. Neptunian careers are if you're in charity organizations, if you're in medical field, helping those in need, if you're in spiritual field, if you're in artistic field, actor, musician, poet, computer game creator, imagination, using the imagination of some sort, then you will thrive. Actually, your career might take off a lot better. But 9 to 5 career and people who are more organized, and for you, Virgo, you feel it especially difficult because this disorganizes you. Despite of Saturn in the 6th house, you'll feel Neptune stronger, and you can find like, I feel like I don't have control over my life, over my daily routines, like I don't feel motivated, and that's kind of hard for Virgo. So, but in this moment, yes, try to organize as much as possible, but try to kind of do Neptunian things on purpose. Read spiritual books, go by walks, random walks by the water, swim more, and listen to music, a bit more isolation as well, spend more time alone, meditate or imagine things, visualize. This is Neptunian very much in nature, and work with forgiveness and so on. And use some grounding stones. If you can ground yourself, spend more time on earth barefoot to ground, because Neptune ungrounds you from this world. And put some Neptunian art, so you can, or draw Neptunian, the sea, the ocean, or just paint or any art to anchor again, because you channel this into more productive Neptunian activities rather than the lost Neptunian activities. Okay, and the last one is Pluto. If you're Virgo from 26 degrees to 29 degrees in Virgo, 26 to 29, now you have Pluto trine from your 5th house. You can experience some really intense love affair this year, very Plutonian, but positive. Someone who is more scorpionic, with deep sexual intensity, with sexual experimentation, with it's like, I belong to you, you belong to me, I've waited for you 9.5 weeks type of story, or it's sexual, it's intense, there's power, there's I'll put a spell on your mind type of deep, transformative romantic relationship, for example. Or no, it's not only that, it's coming from the 5th house, but also there can be some very transformative, creative idea that comes to you, which really empowers you. Pluto wants to bring back your power, and you feel more powerful, more strong. You can achieve something that you never had the willpower to achieve before. And you can do it with more, yes, you have to make an effort, but with more ease, and create something that you're very proud of. And Pluto can transform you, give you your appearance. You can even look sexy. If it's your ascendant or your moon, you can exude more sexiness, more power. My partner recently had Pluto trine his moon, and it's actually he's still having it, and we relocate it in a way that is very empowering for us. And he made a lot of money on the stock market because his moon was in the 8th house. Transformative, Pluto is transformative, gives deep knowledge. If it's your sun there, if your career will be strengthened, more power. You'll make the right choices intuitively with your career, with the right man as well, if it's about relationships. If it's your moon there, some powerful woman can come in your life, transform you. The right choices about your personal life, strengthening of your health, more sexual intensity as well, and depth. And Pluto will give you more depth and interest into deeper topics, life after death, sex, forbidden information, and you can reveal a lot of forbidden knowledge and information. And Jupiter in the 8th house is helping you, as we said already. But Pluto will empower you without breaking you down. But some of those dark topics will be around your life and death, pregnancy, death, rebirth. Or even some of you, Pluto can receive help from another, because Pluto is the resources of others and hidden resources that comes to you and empower you, so you can have help, whether for your career, for your personal life, or for your health, whether it's sun, moon, or ascendant. Through Pluto, to empower yourself through some forbidden knowledge, or through some exclusive knowledge and deepen interest and information that you receive, and even physical power. It gives you more power, because Pluto is the high octave of Mars, to do something and to do it without problems, without the battle of the darkness that Pluto usually puts you through, to overcome to win in a battle, to overcome some difficulty, to win over something. The stars are on your side there. There you go. This is for all of you with some specific degrees. Not all the degrees were mentioned, but I think I covered a lot of topic for you, because not all the degrees will experience everything, but the Gemini, the Mars retrograde will affect all of you, basically from 8 to 25 degrees. Virgo, they will feel the Mars retrograde the most, that we talked about. But yeah, very, very important year for you, Virgos. You see, Mars will directly affect you. I think the most intense part, the most important part of the year will be from the end, especially since Mars enters your 10th house, because you have some important work to do, some very important jobs, a very important career project to do that will require to mobilize all your forces there, and hopefully it will give great result. And it might be very mental work as well, because it's in Gemini, but the hard work and a lot, and you'll see the great results after January 2023. So thank you so much. I love you, and have a great year.